Today on the Lost River Woodshop, we're making hybrid blanks. Stay tuned. Today we're going to be working with a couple of different materials to use for hybrid blanks. One of the first ones will be cholla cactus. Now this is a section of cactus that grows in the southwest United States. This is harvested and sold, I don't know, probably about $2 per piece. The next material is called peckycypress, and this comes from a swamp. I got this peckycypress from a gentleman named Jim Bogdan. And I checked with Jim earlier today and he was fine with me sharing his email address. So if you'd like to get in touch with him to get some of this cypress for yourself to experiment with, contact him and he can let you know what kind of inventory he has and what the current price is. I'll be using mica powders this evening to color the resin, the alumilite. I've chosen to go with a silver and blue, and I'll mix up 2 separate batches for each color. You'll allow those to heat up to a certain temperature before you mix them in the mold. This particular brand is produced by Brian Blome and sold through Turner's Warehouse, turnerswarehouse.com. I'll include links for everything in the notes below. All right, now we're ready to put our pieces into the casting mold. And this one has been specifically made to do hybrid casting. Each one is set up, it has a size on it of 7/8 by 7/8 by 5 1/4. So you can make these pieces fit just by cutting them off a little bit, or by using 2 separate pieces like so. You make sure that they're tight inside the mold and then you can come back and fill in behind it. So give me a second here while I mark this for cutting. I'm going to take this over to the bandsaw and cut it off and I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm back from the bandsaw now. I've got this cut to size. And since you can see there's a little bit of a bend in this, this actually is going to work to my benefit. It's going to allow me to wedge this into one of the cavities on the mold and hold it in place while the resin gets poured in. Otherwise, it might float up to the top and not set properly in the resin. And there's a couple ways that you can work around that. You can either put something over the entire mold to hold it down, or you can try hot gluing it to the other side of the mold. This being silicone though, I don't know how well that would work. So give me a chance here and see what I can do. I don't want too much of a bulge in it there. I think right there it's good. It should stay in place. These cavities are partially filled with wood. I can't use the straightforward formula to fill up each cavity. Part of this is being displaced by the peckycypress and by the cholla cactus, or break my Spanish dictionary out, cholla cactus. I'll throw out the formula here on screen so you can see normally what it is. It's not too difficult. It's not geometry. Well, no, it's not geometry. It's just a straightforward formula. Length times width times height times 0.554 gives you the number of ounces per cavity. And then you have to multiply that by the number of cavities in the mold. Now, if you're working in grams, like I do, you then have to convert that number into grams. And I'm not going to go into that right now. So what I'm estimating is that I need about probably 200 grams of material mixed up. So I'll make a batch of 100 grams that will be silver, and I'll make another batch of 100 grams that is blue. So since I'm doing 100 grams in each container, I need 50 grams of part A to start with. And over poured a little bit there. But you know what, that's fine. I'm gonna leave it at 55, 56, and I'll just match that. I'll mark that over here so I know that one's heavier. But I'll do them both at 55. There we go. And like I've said before, you want to make sure that you have a 1-to-1 ratio of the hardener with the resin. So I'm going to tear this and pour in at least 56. It's always better to go over on your hardener than under. Okay, right there I'm at 56, 57, that's good. And 57. So now we're on the clock. We got 12 minutes to get this mixed up and ready to go in the pot. Maybe actually a little more than 12 minutes. 12 minutes is your open time. And what we're going to be working with today is temperature, because if you mix these too early, they're just going to mix straight together and you're going to have a single color, silver blue. And what I want is for there to be mixtures and interchanges between the blue and the silver. So we're going to wait for this resin to hit between 95 and 100 degrees and then we'll pour. And you see how that's cloudy? That's the two resins coming together. Scrape down your sides, scrape the bottom, and give it another good mix. Now you can ask 100 different casters on how to mix resin and you're going to get 100 different answers. So you just develop whatever works for you and it'll be fine. As you know, as long as you're getting good results, there's no need to worry about how other people do it. Okay, those both look good. Now we have separate stirring rods for each, because now I'm going to add some resin. I'm sorry, now I'm going to add some coloring. When you're adding pigment, you want to make sure that you're adding enough, because it will settle a little bit in the resin. So if you have too little in there, you're going to have a gap at the top of the blank once everything settles, of where it'll be mostly clear. It'll be somewhat colored, but you won't have all the opalescence that you do with these colors. So I'm going to try it with that amount and see how we look. Remember to scrape your sides down because you want to get all that pigment mixed in. Once again, don't need to worry about how vigorous you're stirring. You might be mixing in bubbles, but once we put it in the pressure pot, all those are going to disappear. From here, it's just a waiting game. Keep mixing it, make sure everything doesn't settle. You kind of judge it, make sure if you need to add some more of the mica powder. Right now the blue looks like it might be a little light on pigment, so I'm going to add just a tad more to it. The silver I think is looking all right. All right, so I'm going to let these cook and we'll be right back. All right, this one is at 98, 97 degrees, right in the middle of that range that I'm looking for. This one is at 90, just about 95. So these are ready to pour. Now, the nice thing about these stir sticks I've made, they're out of the same material as this cutting board. And the nice thing about the cutting board material is this resin will not stick to it. Well, let me correct that. It'll stick, but it won't bond to it. So all you have to do is just get under it and pry it up a little bit and it pops right off. It's really neat. All right, so now we're going to start pouring. And excuse my shake here. You're going to make a little mess here, I'm sure. Yeah, I made a big mess. Pouring a little too fast for the choya. And that's okay if it gets into the sides, because I'll just pour what's left of the resin in there. So I'm going to come back in here and fill up a few cavities. And start pouring into this one. I really like the contrast of the silver and the blue in this. Looks really nice. And make sure that cavity's filled up. And I'll just pour off what's left into this cavity. Alright, so I think that's all I'm going to get out. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can scrape some of this extra over here, so it doesn't all go to waste. And to save myself a little headache here after this, I'm going to pour some of this off. I'll show you how well it'll pop off that material after this has cured. So we're well into the gel time of this material. Wow, that's going to be a mess. It's going to start going off and setting. So I want to get this into the pot as soon as I can and get it under pressure so it doesn't trap any bubbles inside. So I apologize, I'm not going to have time to change the camera view on this. The mold's now in the pressure pot and it's pressurized to 40 psi. Since I'm using Alumilite Slow, that means that I have 2 hours to wait until this material is set. So why don't you all go take a bathroom break, hit the concession stand, get yourself something to drink, maybe a little popcorn, and I'll see you here in 2 hours. Okay, so this has sat at 40 psi for a little over 2 hours now. So what we're going to do now is relieve the air pressure and pull the mold out of I'll get it out eventually. Pressure pot. Okay, all the pressure is relieved. Now we just unscrew. And before we start working on all this, I just wanted to give you a little example of how easy it is to get this material off of the cutting board. So you just get under there, pull up on it, and it peels right off. All right, so let's start by pulling out, or maybe peeling off, this top layer. There we go. Now it's starting to give a little. Okay, so I got a little cleanup to do here, and we'll come back and take a look at the finished product. Okay, so first off, let's just take a look at the regular blank. This one turned out pretty neat, I think. There's some good mixture of the silver and blue inside the blank. Once this gets cut and drilled and turned, I think this is going to be a really neat looking pen. Next is the Cholla cactus. And on the Cholla, you can see a little bit of it was still up above the top level of the mold. With Cholla, there's not much you can do with that. The stuff has grown the way it's going to grow, and you can shove it as much as you want, and it's not going to stay in line. So more than likely, when I cut this to be a pen, my scrap is going to be on this end, because I want as much of the cactus to be left in the blank when I turn this into a pen. So this will be interesting to see how it turns out. And lastly is the Pecky Cypress. And this one is going to be really cool. You got all these voids inside the Pecky Cypress that are filled with resin. You can see where it came down in here and here. And in here there were some voids along the sides. So that's how it's going to look on the inside. The scrap on this one, when I cut it, will probably be on this end. That will give me wood at the top and the bottom of the pen, and then leave an open area of resin where the two halves would meet. Because this would be probably best suited for, a Majestic Junior, a Junior Gent, or a Majestic, one of your larger pen kits, and something that's going to be either a rollerball or fountain pen. The combination of that, one of those kits with a hybrid blank like this is going to be a pen that's going to fetch quite a bit of money for you. The next video in this series, we'll take one of these blanks and we'll turn it into a pen. Now that's going to be, since this is actually my first time making a hybrid, so you guys are right along there with me in making this. So I want to give these the full 5 days to let them cure. If I were to try and cut these right now, the material, it would turn like really hot butter, but it wouldn't take a polish. And it's just not a good idea to turn this so early. You want to wait at least 24 hours, preferably 48, before you start turning it. I'm going to give it the full 5 days to cure. So that's it for this evening. Thank you all for coming along with me on this experience. If you like what I've done here this evening, give me a thumbs up. If you like what I'm doing on the channel, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you know about everything that happens in here. Once again, thanks for stopping by the Lost River Wood Shop. And look at the